Great. Greetings to all. It's morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are joining from. I appreciate you all joining us today for this insurance webinar. I hope your day is going exceptionally well. We are diving into a very stimulating topic for today, which is Gen AI-driven innovation in insurance, and this is transforming the industry landscape. Your attendance is greatly valued. So allow me to start with an introduction of myself and AI Course Spot to you. My name is Nitin Naveen, and I serve as the Vice President of Innovation and Strategy at AI Course Spot. With nearly a couple of decades of experience in consultancies that navigate emerging technologies, I'm privileged to have collaborated with many stakeholders, global thinkers, and absorbing their innovative and inventive ideas and solutions. Today, my colleagues are there, a couple of them are there. One is Arvind and Naveen. They also present to contribute their dynamism to our session. So their commitment and endeavor to shaping this event deserve a hearty round of applause. Thanks a lot, both of you. Let me give you a glimpse about AI Course Spot. It commenced a journey 3 years ago, and its objective was to establish a focal point for knowledge in AI, ML, robotics, IoT, and among other areas. Our webinars aim to impart cutting-edge technological developments within the industry. Every month, we explore different technology realms, introducing fresh themes and continuously expanding our reach. We aspire to cultivate the foremost AI-centric global community, inviting like-minded individuals to join in our collective progression and triumph. By conducting webinars and hybrid events supported by industry insights, we anchor our learning in trustworthy information provided by our esteemed experts and our valued partners. We also curate content across digital mediums such as blogs, videos, podcasts, and newsletters to shed light on the rapidly changing tech landscape. Turning to today's webinar, we have got a compelling subject on the agenda: pioneering the next wave of insurance innovation powered by Gen AI. Our speakers will delve into significant aspects such as the importance of collaborations and partnerships, the influence of Gen AI, the challenges, the risks, the human element, and much more, which is within the insurance sector. The expert panel is set to offer substantial insights and spark enriching discussions, which is not to be missed. Let's begin with some key points for today. First of all, acknowledgements to all our community partners for their pivotal role today, which includes Aon, InfoVision, NFP, and Connor, Strong, and Bucklew. An immense thanks to all our attendees for dedicating your time and energy for this webinar. Your engagement is absolutely crucial in reaching your objectives and networking with the peer who are there and attending today's webinar. Our primary mission is to facilitate access to valuable knowledge and foster significant connections. Should you depart with innovative concepts for today or new networks which you gain out of today's webinar, we'll consider it as a great effort from our side. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speakers. So let me introduce them one by one. Our first speaker is Ron, who's the Senior Vice President of Commercial Analytics at Aon. Our second speaker is Mark, who is Head of Innovation at NFP. Our third speaker is Lovedeep, she is Chief Analytics Officer at Connor, Strong, and Bucklew. And our fourth speaker and moderator for this webinar is Vijay, who is AVP of BFI at InfoVision. Please note, before we commence this discussion, the opinions expressed by the speakers are their personal ones, not related to the associated organizations which they represent for. With that said, I pass over the baton to Vijay to steer this captivating panel discussion. Over to you, Vijay.
Thank you, Nitin, and good morning to everyone. Let me also thank our panelists for your time and participation, and all the attendees who have joined us and taken time of your day to go through the great topic that we got today, Gen AI-driven innovation in insurance industry. So let me jump right into it. We have witnessed major tech advancements in terms of automation since mid-2010, and lately with OpenAI publicly releasing ChatGPT, and it entered the mainstream conversation. Companies everywhere are investing in Gen AI to transform their organization. What we want to learn and start with is, why has Gen AI tech innovation in general been so slow in insurance industry? What is holding the transformation back? And if we can learn from Mark.
Thanks. Appreciate the opportunity. I think we'd be fair in the fact that I do think there has been adoption within the insurance industry of technologies of innovation and AI. It certainly hasn't been as prevalent as in many industries, but there is some movement. The hasn't completely popped, but it's leaking some air, I'd like to say. And I think if you look at our industry, there's probably a couple of things you can point to that one ranks over the other. But if you begin to look at legacy platforms, we're certainly our industry across the board in every vertical. There's a host of legacy platforms that have been in place now for years and years, built on some old architecture, and makes relatively difficult to access and to integrate with the data. Not impossible, but difficult. So that's, I think, one of the areas that has been a little bit of a challenge. The other is just the data in general. Certainly in the insurance industry, there's a lot of data we have. The unstructured nature of it historically has been a real challenge, even to the tune of being paper in cases still, surprisingly enough, and we sit here in 2024. And so data. So those legacy platforms, and where that does exist, we have silo issues. And I'd also probably should point to the fact that insurance in general is heavily regulated. There's a lot of regulation, there's compliance issues that come into play, and rightfully so, people get very concerned around that, and thus it kind of tempers some of the adoption. Those are the top aspects, but I would say probably more so than that. You have to look to the fact that we have an industry that is, I'll call it aging. If you look at the average of the population industry, it's ticking upward, and we had an issue with bringing younger talent into our industry. And so as you have that, you have a lot of folks that maybe haven't been upskilled, maybe don't have the understanding and the knowledge of what technology, AI, innovation in general could do and bring to the organization. So it's met with a lot of fear, a lot of unknown. And I think that then is driving the difficult to embrace change. And I would say the people are driving and are the most important pieces of any type of innovation, not necessarily the technology. But I think that those aspects bundled together, that's where we are. But I think, again, we're making progress and very encouraged with some of the new GenAI aspects of AI that are coming to the forefront, and hope that'll help accelerate some of the change.
That's awesome. We are definitely making some progress. So, and you talked about legacy systems, lack of data standardization. So those are good points. As we see, you talked about regulated industries, finance and healthcare being the most regulated, but we are there. Insurance is keeping up with the pace now, you rightly said. Lovedeep, would you like to contribute to that? Why do we see that adoption being so slow in insurance industry compared to other industries?
And thanks for all those good points, Mark. I just want to add this another point here, that nature of this industry, which is conservative in nature and risk aversion nature of insurance industry, that the business itself is to manage and mitigate risk. And that leads to this conservative approach towards almost everything, even if it's about adopting new technologies. And we prefer stability and reliability over innovation. Once a technology stack or anything is proven to be useful, impactful, and is reliable, then the insurance industry is there and ready to adopt. So no doubt, we always look like as if we are catching up, and we are always in catching up phase, but we do adopt once we have reliable tech there.
Yeah, rightly said, Lovedeep. We do see this. Companies are starting with small-scale pilot projects to test GenAI applications, and then take it from there. That's good point there. Ron, would you have some more insights to add what Mark and Love contributed to us? What's slowing down?
Just one briefly. So some companies have concerns about exposing data to the large language models. So they get on ChatGPT and they can certainly use it for almost every aspect of their job. In our case, as long as we don't expose client data directly to ChatGPT, we're not going to enter any data there. We're not going to quote anybody there. So we just have to be careful with our prompts because once the data are actually loaded into a model, in some sense, it becomes public. So, as consultants, we have to be very careful about it. And that's the major concern. But the people here, especially the data scientists that I work with, will use it to facilitate the rest of what they do. But we're not going to expose any data to it directly. So.
Yeah, right, Lee. That's a good point. So as we look at enterprises, and they are all looking at the fastest and the best way to provide GenAI experience to their users, and same is with insurance industry. So the pressing question that among all industry leaders today is, what can we do to prepare for utilization of GenAI applications? And if you can go first, Mark, what are your thoughts on that? What can these organizations do for proper utilization of GenAI applications?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly there's opportunity to bring in a small pilot sense AI to the table in a pretty quick fashion. However, I think if you're looking to transform your company and the industry as a whole, I don't think it's an overnight fix. I do think the organization first and foremost needs to be committed to innovation, to technology, to the use of AI, to reinvent the way or enhance the way that they do business. And this is top down. It's also bottom up. And in fact, I would say it's middle out, because I would say that middle management area in many cases is the area where they feel a bit threatened. And if the communication from the company is that culturally, this is the way in which we're moving the organization, that's super important. There's a permission to utilize and to explore. If that does not exist, then you're going to have a lot of people that are very hesitant to kind of start to try. I think from that point, or even to get to that point, or with that, is also training and upskilling. I think a lot of folks throwing around the term AI and Gen AI don't really understand what it is, what the power is, and lack of understanding drives reluctance to change and to adopt. So even a grassroots effort of explaining and educating the workforce all the way up into the C-suite. I got to be honest with you, folks think automatically because you tier up the level that there's all of a sudden this accumulation of knowledge of technology and innovation. And I find that's not always the case. In some cases it is, but not always the case. And without understanding, you have a lot of folks that are judgmental. They automatically jump to conclusions as opposed to being curious. And in this world with Gen AI, the key is to be curious and to explore. And so if that's not embedded in part of your culture, you're going to have a tough time. And that doesn't happen overnight. The second, teams really need to take a focus on their data and look at their data. We talked about being that being a big problem. I would say if data is not organized and clean, then the ability to layer on top of it these type of newer tools and technologies that are coming to market becomes really difficult and actually becomes a lot less powerful without having the whole accumulation of data. So the organization or the cleaning of the data, and then a strategy to maintain that data cleanliness and that data organization, whether it be a platform or just the general tech infrastructure. And then I think what lastly is, from within, communication with the team and your people about, what part of their data challenge and where are they seeing problems, and starting there to figure out where in turn you're then going to start to apply the technology to help solve a problem, to create that better experience. Because if it's done in opposite, let's find technology first and then find a problem to solve, we find that to be a very difficult path for success.
Good points. Definitely, Mark. If to have the desired performance and impact of AI solutions, and before scaling up, these are some of the key points they have to, all the organizations should keep in mind before utilization of GenAI applications. And Lovedeep, if you have more to contribute, I know Mark covered it so well. So if there are more points from your side, and go on.
I covered almost all the points. So yes, start with the clear business goal and develop a data strategy and scalable and secure IT infrastructure. It comes later. But the last part here is do not forget to implement the strong governance on these AI systems, data governance, as well as any other tech platform that we need to secure to do take care of these components to enforce ethical guidelines as well. So once we use these as decision support tools.
That's very good. And Ron, if we can have your views on that same.
Yeah, I want to second what Lovedeep just said, and Mark as well, about the importance of vision and strategy. And when we think about vision in particular, it's hard because it requires people to put some thought into where we want to be and how we want our customers, our clients in the market to see us, a little bit down the road. And so what we need to do in terms of GenAI is educate our clients, educate the marketplace about where it's useful, provide case studies and illustrations of where it's useful to build their sort of thinking, to evolve their sort of thinking in terms of how it can be used, how we use it, and to advance their initiatives and to make sure that they have success. And if our customers want it, we're going to do it, frankly. So we will figure out ways to overcome the internal hurdles around, that Mark and Lovedeep just mentioned, because it'll become a market imperative, and that's really what drives change here.
Absolutely, Ron. You rightly said to determine how useful that particular technology is, what we can derive. So that brings us to our next question: that how these emerging technologies or the latest advancements you see today in GenAI are relevant to the insurance sector particularly. So if anyone wants to take a first step at that, please share your thoughts on.
I'll start.
On first a couple times, so I'm going to defer over to Lovedeep, and maybe then I'll chime in second.
Okay, yeah,
or
that's
third.
that. So these technologies definitely hold significant potential in transforming our insurance sector. So use cases like claims processing, underwriting, fraud detection, all are there. But I like this one really. The cool one is like those UBI policies, like usage-based insurance policies, like how we have this Allstate one that based on your driving habits, your auto insurance premiums are changing. So that personalization of the products and services, that's something that is really evident there with these AI solutions. Your turn, Mark.
Ron, do you want to jump in before I go? We'll kind of go in opposite order here.
Yeah, thank you. So, when I think about this question, as I have been thinking about it for a bit, I happened to see a really nice chart in the July and August edition of the Harvard Business Review. It's got a chart on it of 100 different ways that people use generative AI. Many of them apply or can apply to the insurance industry. The first and most powerful one there is something that I've been saying as well, which is generating ideas. And in order to solve a problem for a client, it's very useful to not only understand what they think, what they believe the problem to be and get their perspective, but as we're thinking about that, using ChatGPT or some other large language models, and soon, by the way, using smaller language models that are being developed, will help us understand what the rest of the world has been saying about that problem, because chances are the clients that we're dealing with are not the only ones trying to address it. So the idea generation within ChatGPT, for example, even if it's not perfect, even if it goes astray every once in a while, we can just focus our prompts a bit and ask it what we really want to know. And chances are it'll show you some things that you already know, but it'll very likely to show you some things that you didn't already know. So that's key. It helps us get off on the right foot, and we can have those discussions with our clients about, that what other people have been saying as referenced by ChatGPT, and that facilitates the work down the road.
Mark?
Yeah. I mean, I think both great answers. I think if we boil it down, right, the insurance industry, there's a ton of data out there. We talked about it maybe not all organized at the time and structured currently, but there's a lot of data out there. And at the end of the day, insurance is about risk management. And if we can help our clients from a risk management perspective, then we're doing our job. And the more data you have, the more better decision you can help clients make. And to Ron's point, if generative AI and tools can ultimately understand data and use that data to anticipate needs and generate solutions, or the starting point for solutions, as opposed to just completing tasks, that's where it becomes real powerful, I think. Again, that understanding of the data is what's critical, because I think search engines of sorts and people using tools to proactively go out and ask questions, yes, they exist and they have existed for a while. But what's new now is that the folks didn't know how to get started with the data, and didn't know what questions to ask of the data, didn't know what to derive from the data. Now they're being prompted to give a little bit of a push, some training wheel, to speak. So I think that's super important. And we could go, list could be really long, and we could eat up this whole hour on areas within the insurance industry where this could apply. But outside of helping corporate customers make decisions, you have individuals that are purchasing policies in an area where, historically we've had a really bad reputation for a bad user experience. So if we can use data to help direct recommendations to that end user, the more personalized we can be, the more tailored recommendations we can provide, speed, everything focused on a better user experience, and this starts to change the dynamics.
Yeah, that's great, Mark. We did talk about these tech advancements, and you did highlight, all of you, some of the solutions around that. And we're going to go deeper and have your more perspective on each of those solutions for our attendees also to learn. But Nick, I want to know about the ecosystem and the stakeholders that we work with. And if you can share some insights on that how important are these collaborations and partnerships when we talk about different stakeholders in the insurance industry and the ecosystem, and how they are driving the innovation and creating a more cohesive experience for the users. So in the ecosystem, if you're talking about insurance companies, the policyholders, agents, brokers, regulators, so how they are collaborating and partnering to provide that experience to the users. And again, if anybody wants to go ahead first.
Ron, we'll defer over to you, since you haven't gone first yet.
Okay. Hi. Yeah. So this is Ron. I work in the healthcare industry, and so a lot of we have insurance company clients. I used to work for actually the largest insurer organization, commercial insurer in the U.S. And there's no way every insurance company in every health insurance company in the U.S. can do everything themselves. They rely on vendors all the time. In our experience, or my experience, there were often vendors who were performing case management, care management exercises, trying to help people manage the chronic conditions like diabetes, heart disease, asthma, that sort of stuff that they had. And so there are these partnerships that happen all the time. And the reason those partnerships exist is because, at least in our case, if people can learn to better manage their conditions, they're a little healthier, they use less healthcare services, especially inpatient care and emergency care. and it costs less. So most insurance companies are in it to manage costs by managing health, and and that's sort of key to success. Now, and that stuff has been going on for years, for decades. More recently, they've been using generative AI to facilitate those conversations, because it's not just a once a month call with a nurse anymore to help talk about a condition and help manage it. There's a lot more opportunities to interact with professionals by using the large language models and the chat functions that are a lot more sophisticated than they used to be. And it can be 24/7. Anytime somebody needs something, they can go on and do it, as opposed to trying to reach somebody by phone, which is generally not possible, 24/7. So it facilitates the conversations. It just helps move along and advance the relationship by working with the vendors who are also integrating, some of these ChatGPT or other language models.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add to that. I mean, we as an organization feel that InsurTech startup community is essential. We think that it's something that brings together, the insurance companies and brokers along with your startups is critical to take the industry forward. I mean, only one company can only do so much, and there's a ton of wicked smart people out there creating some really interesting products that can help to utilize the newest tools to bring better user experiences and mitigate risk. I would say the critical component of that partnership is that the industry is pretty complex. And I think folks that have come to the industry without understanding the industry as a whole and tried to solve for a problem that looks very easy to solve for from the outside in have hit some roadblocks. So that collaboration, I think from both sides, it's important for the legacy, brokerage and insurance community to bring in new ideas. And I think it's important for the startup community to kind of, route to those legacy partners and create some collaboration. But I think it's super important that is embraced, and it's always been part of our philosophy to work with startups, identify folks that are the change makers, and help embrace it and bring it to the market.
Yeah, that's
Just
great.
that yes, sharing expertise and knowledge with each other across all of our partners, like insurers, brokers, agents, and insurtech companies, startup companies. So that would not only help with building and boosting the innovation in insurtech, regtech, risk tech, name anything, but that would help with building those integrated and cross-functional solutions. And time to market is important. So test and fail and try new products and invest in further insurtech capabilities. Yeah, the partnership and collaboration is the root here.
Yeah, you rightly said collaboration between these different teams, and Mark rightly said is key for successful AI implementation. And Ron, you did mention so many products out there. So how do you distinguish the various products or solutions out there coming to the market each day? So if you all can have some insight on that, what differentiator or the leadership is looking into, and since the market is flooded right now with these products out there.
Yep, and that's it's one of the things that many of the brokers and consultants who work at Aon are grappling with every day, because our customers are asking us, well, there's a lot of choices here, which ones are the best ones. And so we spend a lot of time trying, taking as deep a dive as we can, look at companies. We're looking for companies that have a lot of clients and a fair number of big clients, and an innovative approach. So everybody's looking to all of our clients, and we are looking to differentiate ourselves from our competition. So when we evaluate potential partners, we're looking for innovative ways to solve a common problem. And those innovative ways have not been, obviously, they haven't been used a lot yet, but they seem very promising. The early evidence is that they're likely to be useful. They have some quantitative solid statistical approaches being used in their evaluation processes or in external evaluation processes to help people understand how they work. And with those criteria in mind, it seems like there could be a good partnership there. And then we are looking for, ways to enhance that partnership to make sure it works in a business sense, and we'll move on from there. So with regard to generative AI, it's useful to help make sure we do a broad search. So everybody's got their connections. We certainly mine those. We see stuff on our own and we double check what ChatGPT or some other language model is telling us. But it often suggests new places to look, new companies to look at, and then it's just footwork after that. It's the legwork, and then we go from there. So
good insights. So Mark, lovely if you have more to add to that, please.
Yeah, I'm going to just say clearly there's a ton of solutions that exist in the market. One of the things that we try to focus in on is first off, are they solving for a big problem? It's great to have cool technology. Solving for a problem that's not going to be impactful either with your customer or within the business, you're going to get a lack of adoption because there's a lack of excitement. From that point in time, we'll drill down. A little bit. Are this particular organization solving for that problem in a different way? Are they separating themselves from the pack, and are they doing something that's unique that can bring additional value? And then we also do take a look at the leadership and the structure and the people and the experience company. I do think for a little bit though, one of the things that I struggle with is everybody's always trying to find that company that maybe has had the experience. And I don't know that startup sense always should be something that you're leaning on, because great solutions have to start somewhere. And if we're innovative in the early stages, then sometimes you need to take a leap. So you have to be willing to take a chance on a company. You've vetted them fully, obviously. I kind of have that fail fast mentality a little bit. Because I think too much diligence, you kind of go into paralysis through analysis. And we always lean back on, is this platform better? Are you going to put yourself in a better position than you are today? It might not be the best, and you might not get to the ultimate place you want to be right off the bat, but are you better? So you can incrementally increase over time your efficiency. So it's a process that we take. Vetting and doing the diligence on the structure and the validity and the solid nature of the company from a financials perspective, et cetera, is important, but just blocking and tackling around problems that are being solved.
Lovely.
On my end, being a technology person, so I would like to evaluate their underlying technology, and Ron touched that point. And is it scalable? Do we have APIs? Can we connect our existing technology and platform, the solutions we have in-house today? Can we connect those with the external solutions? So that interoperability is important for me. And yes, team experience that adds, and the stability of the startup tool, insurtech company, that matters. If their financial stability is there, then is the only point. Then there is the point of us changing systems here, changing the management procedures here, operation steps here. Yep.
I think actually point in bringing it back to your question prior to, if they're not looking to collaborate and be a part of an ecosystem, but rather trying to control and own everything, that's a red flag for us. We want somebody that's going to integrate. They're going to, make their APIs available. They're going to be a part of the solution, not feeling as if they need the solution. That's a big, something that we look for.
That's great, Mark. And that brings us to a follow-up question. Then do firms have AI champions once you have identified these solutions and it's check marks everything what you're looking for? So do the firms have AI champions who promotes its use? And if you can provide some examples how your organization is utilizing generative AI today with some typical use cases, that will be great. I know we all talked briefly about how it's useful, but if you can go in detail for attendees, like how your organization is utilizing generative AI today, and if AI champions are there to promote its use.
I'll take the first part and then defer. I mean, we had, when we launched our transformation strategy 4 years ago, we did so with the idea that we're going to be successful. It needed to be, again, culturally and kind of, I guess, supported internally. So we did not invest in a large, innovation team that sits over top of the organization. Rather, they moved to identify champions and ambassadors within the business that, raised their hand and said, we're interested in seeking a new way and a better way. So we absolutely have embraced that. I think it's important to have that because folks will lean on their peer for guidance and direction equally, if not more than, let's say, a separate team within the organization. I think there's a collaboration, and it's easiest to push the message out, drive adoption through that champion network. So we've definitely embraced that strategy.
It's a good point, that asking who can raise rather than putting an across the board implementation, asking who would like to lead it and take it forward. That's a good approach. So anything from Ron?
Yeah, I firmly support what Lovedeep and Mark just said. And I think we tend to think alike because in some sense we're all analysts of a sort. And so we tend to think in terms of a scientific process. And oftentimes some of our clients and business people who don't have that training think a little bit differently. And so we're trying to figure out how best to help make them successful in a way that has some validity to it. So with regard to AI, generative AI, the advice that we give clients, and I have seen this written in many places as well, is to start small, test, figure out what works and doesn't work, and scale what seems to work. But even that scaling process is going to play out differently with different groups of people, based perhaps on their age, their gender, their location, in the types of businesses that they're in, and the types of problems they want to solve. So I have never seen a new product and innovation go from 0 to 1,000 very quickly, perhaps with the exception of OpenAI. But generally speaking, it doesn't occur. And oftentimes people test, they see that something works here. They want to jump to revenue and profit, which means they want it to work in many different places. And without sort of rigorous testing to make sure it's going to work where we all want it to work, then we take a big risk. So going slowly, building upon successes, knowing what drives innovation and what drives adoption of generative AI, and how it can be useful for our clients and how that differs across clients and locations, et cetera. That, I think, is the key to scaling and the key to success. But it's not a fast process, generally speaking. It plays out over time.
That's good. Thanks for your thoughts on that. Navdeep, if we can hear your thoughts before we move into the other topics of the session.
But I wanted to add to this part that the question is, do we have AI champions? So yes, for Cornerstone and Workflow, we do. Our firm has insurtech champions here who actively promote AI uses. And it's evident through the investment in BrokerTech Ventures. We call it BTV. And the focus of BTV is to foster innovation in insurance industry, and Cornerstone Workflow being one of the founding members of BTV, that clearly demonstrates that we are committed in leading in this insurtech space. So through that, we have engaged in many pilot programs with insurtech startups, and one of them is helping us with handling and analyzing loss run documents, and that platform basically is automating the intake of loss runs, standardize them, and then analysis of loss run data from various carriers and converting into actionable insights. So that's through BTV, InsurTech Startup. And the other use cases, the other part of the question is, do we have GenAI use cases? So that's one. There are some inbuilt co-pilots within these go-to-market intelligence or CRM platforms that our sales and marketing teams are also using for their prospecting, engagement, etc. And the third component that I have noticed that we have RPA set up here. And we're within RPA setup, we have AI Builder that is helping us to extract information from documents, and then that extracted information either sits in our data sources so that later on we could use that data, or at the second step here is we generate new insurance forms based on that extracted information. So there are many pilots and many kind of general releases here. So hopefully they'll end up into a successful project after we'll monitor the ROI. But yes, I'm hoping that
Yeah.
will help.
Yeah, you rightly touched
mean,
on the next topic. Yeah, go ahead, please, Mark.
No, I was just going to say, I think great points. We too are executing in the same kind of categories. Lovedeep mentioned. I think that in the industry, you're seeing more and more testing internally. I think you're seeing more use of GenAI currently in its infancy stages within our industry, aiding our account teams and our producer teams to utilize and make them more efficient and identify opportunities to the point of whether it be extracting data off an index document, comparing contracts for differences, aggregating or accessing and obtaining loss run data. There's no shortage of labor-intensive tasks within our industry. And so there's certainly huge opportunities to bring these tools into play in a co-pilot type setting so that folks start to learn the power and realize that it's not about replacement, it's about enhancement of the human. So
yeah, that's the wider utilization of generative AI. And Lovedeep, you did mention that waiting to see the success. So what ROI you're looking at? How do you measure the ROI of implementing such GenAI solutions? If you can talk about that.
Okay, yes. As we all touched this point, that always start with a clear goal. So even if it's external vendor or your own solution, so we have set the clear goals for what we want to achieve with AI. And then we want to compare the metrics, the KPIs, before and after implementing those AI solutions so that we could note the impact. Do note that these AI solutions gonna be expensive, the initial cost of implementation and the ongoing cost, it's gonna be there. But what we look for as an ROI metrics, like quantitative metrics, are cost savings. Did we generate revenue increases, and did we save time saving? These kind of quantitative metrics are there. Additionally, we have qualitative metrics like factors like are employees satisfied with the use of this? Are we saving their time? The employee satisfaction, the customer satisfaction. These are the qualitative ones. So finally, even if we set up all these metrics, it's important to monitor these performance metrics. Monitoring system has to be set up. And then based on whatever we see in those numbers and those metrics, adjust our strategies accordingly wherever is need. So wherever we see something is going up and not expected, then try to adjust the strategy. So yes, that's the measure of ROI here.
All right. Yeah. Mark, how are you measuring the ROI of implementing these solutions at your organizations? Yes. Well, we wait. Mark, so we Lovedeep, you
I knew I was
rightly
going to do it. I set up that mute just to make sure that we had one of these "you're on mute" sayings throughout this.
Yeah.
So I was saying that I think there's two things to look at. So first off I think the use of generative AI and the language models has created a better opportunity to hit an ROI quicker. I think that if you look at older school AI, there's a lot of training that was involved of the platform, and not that it doesn't exist today, but the language models have kind of moved the curve there and made outputs that are impactful a lot quicker to get to and to reach. And I think that's part of the problem with the adoption of AI. Everybody wants to talk about AI as if it's brand new, but it's been around since then, the 50s, the first chatbot, whatever it might be. And all of a sudden, everybody has this AI interest. It's because we're talking about generative AI. And again, I call it the kind of the lazy person AI. It's helping to alleviate some of the hard work that needed to go into model training that candidly our industry hadn't had the patience for. They wanted to see impact quicker. And I think with these tools and the indexing of PDF documents, as opposed to having to actually organize the data, has helped get some impact quicker and keep people engaged. So, certainly one of the things we look at is time save, right? When we're talking about some of the tasks that Lovedeep had mentioned, you're certainly looking at a time save of, a few minutes to analyze documents and compare contracts as opposed to maybe a couple hours. And then you can obviously always point to the accuracy of a computer versus a particular human. With that being said, we've kind of really tried to also focus on how can we use these tools to open up markets, create new revenue streams? Because despite the fact that there is a ton of opportunity for efficiency savings, from a financial perspective, I don't think everybody always buys in and sees that the efficiency savings is going to turn into actual dollar savings within the organization quick enough, especially when you're talking about people. It's not like you're there to eliminate people. There need to be a refocus of the time of people that are saving by using these tools. And I think it's there, but I think the excitement and what everybody gets really excited about is when you can generate new revenue and drive new markets. And so we try to focus in on finding opportunities to differentiate using these tools that will ultimately attract and retain business customers, while at the same time knowing that we are creating efficiencies on the operations side. So it's kind of keep folks occupied with the shiny toy that is new business, while we know we can execute and drive even deeper returns from an operational perspective.
That's rightly said. Increasing efficiency and generating more revenue for your organization. That's where all the corporations are heading. And we do see that evidence. Like now we see ratio of log to registered models since February 2023 has really gone down. That means that now for every 5 experimental models, 1 model gets registered for production, which was 16 to 1. So you see these corporations getting into the experimental mode and eventually seeing them going into the production. So definitely there's ROI. Now talking about some of the applicability that these generative AI solutions have, and I'll put it across for all of you to answer, whoever wants to go in. We do see GenAI assisting in capturing some customer sentiments and behavior. We talked about chatbots or AI assistants that guides. So what are your thoughts? What do you see in your, either it's for the capturing customer sentiments or claim processing or for risk assessment and underwriting? So if you can talk about those in details, how do you see those applicability in your environment?
This is Ron. The chatbot example is kind of interesting because it works on both sides. So, if the AI underpinning of the chatbot works well, the customer who's ever submitting the questions engages in a useful conversation. You can usually tell that if they engage it, if they submit more than 1 or 2 prompts. They're trying to advance it as a conversation like they would advance a conversation with a human. At the same time, ChatGPT is collecting the information in that chat and using it, as eventually as part of training for its next version, its next iteration. So that's why we have to be careful what we say and what we do and what we expose to it. But at the same time, the more we learn, the more it learns, and the future versions of it down the road are going to get better and better.
Adding to this, the real-time recommendation that these systems can provide during the customers are interacting, and our reps, those who are responding to these interactions with help of these real-time recommendations, they can adjust their tone, their responses if there's any need. And that would keep them streamlined, steered towards the main thing that they should be doing. And that would help with the timely assistance.
Yeah. Those are the
There's
active
nothing more
listening.
frustrating.
Yeah.
There's nothing more frustrating than sitting on a phone call and providing information that you know the organization you're talking to has across the board. I don't care what industry, specifically though in the insurance industry. So our ability to use data that's available to us to drive a better engagement with that end user, whether it be a time of claim or time of enrollment or just passing and creating and providing recommendations, it exists in so many different areas. And again, if we can take and utilize GenAI and the various tools that are out there to streamline that, to make it us requiring less of the individual and getting them to the problem quicker, then I think we're in a better position. We've created a better user experience. And I don't know necessarily at that last point, are we talking about eliminating the human? Because there's something about that human interaction that goes a long way as well. So eliminate the part that nobody likes, which is the back and forth of gathering information, and get to the human interaction quicker. I think if you do that, you create a better experience and have a better outcome.
Yeah. So we did talk about this capturing customer sentiments, and you touched on the claim processing mark or other areas. What about accuracy and efficiency of risk management? Those risk management assessment tools have been there for ages now, and underwriters are using that in insurance. So how generative AI is improving the accuracy and efficiency of risk assessment, if we can talk about that.
I'll add here that the standardization of those risk assessment processes, standardization in the sense that with help of these AI-powered decision support tools, we reduces the variability in underwriting decisions, and that brings the consistency across organization. So, and if on top of that, we have access to real-time data, AI models can continuously update these risk assessments based on that latest information. And that's what I think leads towards more accurate and better decision support tools and faster data processing that adds to the efficiency component. So that's my take from here.
I would add that, like, listen, at the end of the day, the language model is all about pattern recognition. And the more data we have, the more recognition of patterns that we can apply to every area of our business, including risk management. So projecting claims that are going to occur in the upcoming year within a population from a health perspective is certainly possible. That can extend into every area of our business. So the more that we can project out, I think, as it relates to, let's say, decision support tools and modeling things now that had more interaction with an individual and asking them questions, I think more people want recommendations, and I feel and projections. And I think, again, the more data, the more advanced the language models become, the better position it puts us in to be able to maybe have a good idea of what's going to occur in the upcoming year, and then plan accordingly, whether it be with plan design structure, whether it be tools that we bring in, whatever it might be. So using that data and the language models to help guide, I think is going to be, more and more become a part of, our world.
And some of these systems, Mark, they inherit biases in present day, the data that they are trained on. So how does this compare to the alternative approaches? If we talk about potential bias or AI hallucinations, best strategy to handle these and increase the level of transparency, how do we avoid those biases that we see?
So this is Ron. We think about this all the time. And it's interesting when I take a look at stuff that's in the popular press in particular around bias. And it casts the impression, at least my inference of it is that it's casting an impression that the bias is the model's fault. The bias is very rarely the model's fault. It happens because humans are inherently biased, and it doesn't matter whether we're talking about machine learning applications of varying sorts, or deep learning applications, or generative AI. The answers that we get are based upon the queries that we put in, and the queries that we put in depend upon our background and how well we can represent the backgrounds of the people that our clients are interested in. From a public policy perspective, we need to find better ways to represent people of different age groups, different gender expressions, different income levels, different education levels, and it's really hard to do that. But I think the language models can actually help. Because we can tailor the prompts in the language models to get a better understanding of what people in different places and with different experiences are thinking, and that can help guide our approach and reduce bias. Even things like when ChatGPT or other things kind of go awry and they quote unquote hallucination, all a hallucination is a bad prediction. And so the approach to it is just to clarify our prompts and get it back to what it is that we're really interested in. The sort of cover or sort of complement to that in a machine learning context is that there are outliers. There are people and experiences that are atypical, and sometimes the models forecast that well, sometimes they don't. And but it's always up to humans to figure out how better ways to interact with the technology to reduce bias. You can't program technology itself to eliminate bias. You can edit it, engineer it to try to reduce bias by generating its own prompts. But bias is generally due to what humans do, much less often to what the model does. So.
Yeah. It touched on the humans as well, but I'll let Lovedeep and Mark put their thoughts together before we talk about humans in the loop. So, if Mark, you have more to say about how
no,
the bias.
I thought Ron's point was great. I think that the data that exists out there, whether it's being an outcome and a recommendation is being driven by a computer or a person, you still run the similar risks. So to look at the data and what it's performing as a starting point, and to make sure that the human, to your point of where we're going to go next, is in the loop and using these recommendations as a starting point and then validating, there's certainly time saved there, and kind of, again, prompts you to move in one direction or the other, again, but one that will need to be validated. So, but I think Ron's points are spot on.
Yeah, Lovedeep, as you answer on the potential bias, I would say, if you can talk about that, as well as what roles do humans play in the generative AI world today, that will be great.
Okay. As Ron mentioned, humans, we are the ones who are the data creators, content creators, right? So if we create biased data, model's going to learn that biased information. But if we want to mitigate that, and if we could train our models on diverse training data and regularly audit the data as well as the trained models, that's what I think will help us with mitigation, as well as the hallucination part, which we cannot control. But at least we can ground these large language models with help of those prompts that do this and that only, what we instruct you. And the human oversight part, that give these AI models as the decision support tools. These are not decision-making tools, but humans are the ones who should be making the final decisions, and especially the final, wherever the judgment is required or ethical considerations are there, humans are the one. They should be the final decision maker here. These are just to augment them. And human plays the role of data preparation, model development, and model validation. And they should be doing all the evaluation and development here, even the decision making. Mark?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, it's the most critical. It's the most critical point as far as adoption of tools in our industry and probably across the board. I think folks like to invoke fear in people. I think news does it. I think media does it, and it talks about replacement and elimination of jobs, where I think it's a shifting of jobs. And I think if people look at these as tools to help them forward their careers, help them forward their job, create a better experience of work. If it was spun that way, you'd see a lot more adoption. But rather, folks, I think, invoke fear. They talk about things that are the worst case scenario. And as a result, that's all that everybody remembers. So the more that we look at the tools that they are an assistant, and I think Microsoft did a great job of calling it Copilot. Now everybody uses it. If you look at it that way, why wouldn't you want assistance? Why wouldn't you want help to execute on the tasks that you have to do that are super labor intensive and really not fun? And that's what we need to do, is realize that human is still a very critical component to every process. But that human needs some help, and that's what the tools are meant to be.
No, rightly said. We have seen more than a decade of automation, but that has created more jobs now we see, and those repetitive jobs or tasks being eliminated, but there have been more demand for these tech professionals now than we see when we were sitting in 2010s. So let's talk about the data privacy. I know in the beginning of the session, we all talked about some of the things that's holding back, and we've not seen so much of implementations in insurance industry. But insurance companies collect and process, as we all know, vast amounts of data. And this can be for risk assessment or pricing or providing personalized insurance products to the users. The question that we have is, what specific data sources does GenAI leverage to enhance the models? How do you ensure these data privacy security is captured when using GenAI for sensitive insurance data, as we know? And I'll keep it open for anybody to take a plunge on it first.
I'll start. So AI, talking about AI or traditional AI, GenAI or traditional ones. So every data source or data set that we collect internally, something like claims data, historical claims, or underwriting data, or customer profile, customer data, that becomes the part of AI models. External data, something like all the social media records or third-party external vendors' data, credit scores of these clients' customers, that becomes part. Other than that, the telematics, wearables, all these IoT devices, they provide data. Environmental data like weather, geospatial, everything goes into these systems, and market conditions, what's the trend there, employment rates, etc. So these models, AI models, whether we train them or use the pre-trained ones, they touch almost all the variety of data sources. And now touching the second point, that how do we ensure the data privacy, security? So I would say that do this data encryption part, whether it's sitting at rest or it's in transmission, going from one system to other, to protect this against the unauthorized access to the implementation of these access controls, like role-based access controls, so that the sensitive data could be shared with only those who should be looking at that data. And multi-factor authentication has to be there. Data anonymization, yes, remove the personally identifiable information from your data sets so that you could protect that individual privacy. So all these elements, I think, will make sure that we are using the data that these models are leveraging. We are using it in a compliant manner and are following the data analytics governance policies and safety policies.
Yeah, you rightly said, Deep. And these, what we see data intelligence platforms today, they are radical democratization of across the organization of data. Mark, Ron, if you want to talk about the data privacy, what you see in your environment, how do you keep coping up?
Ron, you want to try? I'll go.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. From a sort of broad, from the other side, I guess, perspective, that the Chat GPT perspective, anything that a human can find on the internet, Chat GPT can find on the internet, and it'll process, it'll create text responses soon. I think if it's not already out there, it'll be able to. You can use add-ons to it and get information from images that it has access to. So that's the reason we have to be careful about privacy. Anything that's on the internet, ChatGPT uses 30 some odd billion sort of neurons or pieces of information when it searches for an answer. It's trying to predict the next phrase, the next set of phrases in a conversation that makes sense. So anything it can find, it will use. So the kind of stuff that we have to be careful then, as I mentioned before, not to put our clients' direct data on the internet. We can use synthetic data that we create in order to get ChatGPT or other generative techniques, working with machine learning techniques to help us understand, how to summarize it well, how to visualize it well. But the kind of protections that Lovedeep mentioned are absolutely key. We have to be secure ourselves, and our organizations need to be secure. And then we just have to be careful how we address, put information in the generative models in order to make sure that we can help generate a useful answer without exposing our clients to that kind of risk. So.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. I know we are getting close to our end of our time today, and I want to be sensitive to everyone's time, both panelists and our attendees. But if we can wrap it up with any last thoughts and closing comments, maybe talk about risk challenge or what future holds, that will be great. So, Mark, if you're going to go first.
Yeah, I just add on to that, and a couple of things Ron had said in a couple of his responses, is the fact that if the computer can do it, the person could do it, right? So when we talk about the risks of the computer and the risks of data security, et cetera, those same risks exist whether or not it's our computer that we call, a chatbot, or it's John or Jane, right? So we have to be conscious of that. And that ultimately goes back to the need. Early days we talked about, early at the beginning of this conversation, we talked about having a corporate strategy and having a structure and a governance, because you can run into trouble from a security perspective and everything we've been talking about if you have folks that are running rogue and using tools that happen to they've found on the internet. And so if there's a corporate strategy around use of technology, around innovation, around a platform that's been developed, and a drive to, kind of bring everything through the governance and the internal platform that's been dedicated to this, I think you greatly eliminate your risks, or reduce your risks, should I say, and have a better chance of success all at the same time. The technical aspects of it, there's people that are a lot smarter than me within the organization that are building that framework and the security around it. But it shouldn't be lost again. The strategy in place kind of helps with everything we've just talked about. Governance, security, adoption. If that is not in place and there isn't a corporate commitment, your chances of success are much less, and your chances of potential pitfalls and problems are going to be much higher. So in closing.
We did not touch this point. I think the transparency factor, the part that these neural networks or these deep learning models, they are seen as black box models. So that is one of the challenge or the potential pitfall or a risk here, that the decisions we make, these AIs make, they are not transparent. So if talking about the future, if we could prioritize AI solutions that could offer the explainability feature within them to understand how the decisions are made, that is, I think, will make our life easy, humans' life easy.
Oh, that's great. And so, Ron, if you have something to conclude, but we let you say.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, by the way. This has been a great conversation. And my closing comment sort of harkens to something that I read a few weeks ago by Leopold Aschenbrenner. He's one person who he views as just a few who have situational awareness about how AI has developed over time and what it's going to be able to do in the next 10 years. And his major point is it's going to develop a lot faster than a lot of people think it's going to develop. Its capabilities with text, images, motion pictures, art, etc., have advanced really very quickly. And the only real limitations to it are guideposts, guidelines that humans impose, and limits of computing power. And limits in data size. But as the data grows and as computing power grows, we're going to have to be very careful about making sure that we can better manage the risks and get more benefits out of generative AI. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ron, Lovedeep, and Ron, once again, for today's discussion and time. It was great discussion, and we shared great insights. I'm sure the attendees, we have all gained a lot. So, Nitin, let me turn it over to you to wrap things up for us.
Thank you, everyone. We would like to thank all our, community partners, eminent speakers like Lovedeep is there, Mark, Ron, and moderator Vijay, you were there, and every participant who came together and wanted to understand. And you all, I think, contributed to this forum and fostered a great discussion. So thanks a lot, all of you. As the panelists delivered these exceptional sessions, and we are grateful for all of the panel members to come, showing the eagerness to collaborate and they impart the knowledge to the right forum. So for those who cannot attend the session or wish to review it at a later stage, the recording will be accessible on our company's YouTube channel. Excited about the upcoming technological innovations as we all are delving into the year. Our future events, which will cover a wide array of sectors. We have events into banking, financial, insurance, telecoms. We have in retail, healthcare. We do a lot of events in supply chain, manufacturing, and a lot of other industries. So keep in touch for ongoing education opportunities. Stay updated on tech news by visiting our website, which has a lot of content, and follow us on our social media. There you will find comprehensive information, notification of forthcoming events, and guidance on how to attend and sign up for our next events. Support is key, so please engage with us and spread our content online. We extend our sincere appreciation to InfoVision, who is our knowledge and innovation partner, and Digit7, who is our technological ally. Visit infovision.com website to explore more about tech innovations they are into as well. It was a pleasure to present this session, and I hope you all enjoyed it as much as we did. We look forward to more engaging sessions in the future. Till that time, take care and have a great day and year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.